Oh, yeah. Let's see here. What? What? Okay, hold on just 1 second. Of
Holding.
Oh, come on. Seriously? Well, the Facebook is giving me a bit of a trouble. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Facebook Giving Me Trouble podcast. I'm Mark, the movie man. How are you? So technical problems. Let me tell you, I had an interview. I had an interview going on, um, and the poor guy had some internet issues. But luckily, it happened just before we started recording, so that was at least that. But we're gonna have to do this. Oh man. All right, fine. There. Okay.
The
Sorry,
question is,
folks.
Mark, are we live on X?
We're not live on X. We're high on X. No, wait, we're not high on X. That's something to. No, we're not high on X. We're not on X.
It's a joke.
We do not. We do not. We do not. Uh, yeah. Admit or deny there's any X involved. Yeah, Twitter. I didn't even know what that was. I just saw someone post about X. I'm like, Felicia Day posted about X. She's like, what is this? And I'm like, what is that? And I looked at my app, and my app is still Twitter. So whatever. But enough of that. Welcome everyone to the spoiler room. A little bumpy start here, but we are here today to finally look at our last Stocking Up episode. We started with a film that looked at investment, and now we're looking at a film that deals with the other side of all of that stock trading and such kind of the company that would be on the receiving end of, say, stocks dropping or raising or whatnot, with the film from 1987 called The Secret of My Success, starring Michael J. Fox. Oh, so thank you for venturing down the stairs, pulling up a chair, and popping your favorite drink with us. And tonight with us is none other than my right-hand man. He keeps coming back for more. So glad he is with us this evening. It is none other than Mr. Ian Simmons. Hello, Ian. How are you?
I'm doing great, and I am ready to pay the price of love.
You ready to pay the price of love? Hey, sometimes good guys finish first.
No,
Remember
they
that.
don't. I don't know if they actually thought that love song through.
Good guys finish first, man. That's boy howdy.
The songs in this movie. Oh my god.
So yeah, go ahead, give us a synopsis tonight of The Secret of My Success 1987.
Imagine the 1991 Michael J. Fox movie Doc Hollywood, but in reverse, and you have Secret of My Success. um,
Wow. I hadn't thought about it till like you mentioned that right now. And yeah, that's pretty accurate.
um, but no, Michael J. Fox plays a 24-year-old college graduate from Kansas named Brantley Foster. And he moves from his small family farm to the big city of Manhattan to start a job in like finance. And of course, he gets there, and the company he's got a job with, much. It's weird. Like a lot of these movies that we've talked about, Wall Street, Wolf of Wall Street, the young upstart, his first day, something terrible happens. Like
Yeah.
it's either Black Monday or the company gets taken over. In this case, yeah, company gets taken over. He's out on the street day one. Realizes that he's got a vague, distant family connection with his uncle Howard. That his mom said, he works in the city, and Brantley thinks, probably thinking this guy's some kind of a hayseed, maybe runs a convenience store. It turns out he's like the head of this giant corporation that makes everything from what they say, from brownies to nuclear missiles or something like
Yeah,
that. I don't
yeah,
know.
yeah. Missile guidance systems. Yeah.
That's right. So he gets a job in the mailroom and figures out that communication in this mega conglomerate corporation, a building that houses 30,000 employees, the communication is so terrible that he can essentially assume the identity of someone who'd gotten fired, take his office, come up with a fake name, come up with fake stationery, fake memos between the departments to say, hey, here's this new guy, and basically work his way into the business side of things. And so you've got a wacky screwball style comedy of this guy trying to cover up his identity between the mailroom boss who's always thinking he's up to no good, to the love interest played by Helen Slater, Christy Wills, who's pretty much the one female executive in this entire company, trying to woo her while also save this company that's in danger of being taken over by another conglomerate. Yeah, and he's also sleeping with the big man's wife, who's technically his aunt. There's a lot going on in this movie. It's hard to synopsize without just like using up the entire runtime of the film itself.
they cover a lot of things in this movie. It's impressive, and it pretty much has every 80s comedy trope in it, outside of maybe the gratuitous nudity. Outside of that, you have pretty much every other trope in here, good or bad. It's, like you said, the cheesy. First, you have the cheesy opening music, right? You get the secret of my success, and I'm living.
It's I'm living, and there's a ... 25 hours a day. Wow, that
I didn't actually know all the words to it, but I left the subtitles on accidentally for the movie, and so I'm reading the words, going, "Oh, that's what this song."
See, I just wanted like a little Matthew McConaughey pop up to talk about all the drugs he does to stay awake. The character he played in Wolf of Wall Street, not actual Matthew McConaughey.
Yes, not it. Yeah, just his character.
Or maybe, I don't know.
Or maybe, you never know. But yes, Michael J. Fox is in here pretty much reprising his role as Alex P. Keaton. I mean, they call him Brantley, but if you look at it, he's he was pretty much.
He's not, though. I was watching this with that in mind, because he doesn't fit in this movie. And I think part of it is because Brantley's not a killer. Like, Alex P. Keaton is all about business. He's a young Republican. Like, even in high school, he was, all about cutthroat finances and being a young Reaganite.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Brantley is more of an idealistic college student. He's very much like Bud Fox from Wall Street.
Yeah, you're right.
Or,
okay. Yep.
Well, no, maybe. No, sorry. Jordan Belfort on his first day when he sits down with the McConaughey character, and he's talking about like, something about, well, won't people be upset if they, don't get the value for their stock or something like that, or they realize that it's not real. That kind of like wide-eyed optimism of like wanting to make sure the people in the business got what they deserved and what they paid for.
Right.
That's Brantley Foster. Alex P. Keaton is more in line with McConaughey, and be like, none of this is real. We're just in it to make as much money as possible and get all the money and drugs. But yeah, it's strange because I don't think he fit in this movie. One of the big criticisms why it's got such a low score is that a lot of critics at the time thought Fox was miscast, and I kind of agree. And there's these weird moments where I can see the script coming through, and the script was written for more of a hayseed character. I think some kid with like a Midwest or Southern kind of a Kansas like accent. There's a line at the end, this like homespun wisdom line. I'd be as nervous as a long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs. Alex Keaton, Michael J. Fox can't deliver that line the way that it is written. Like when he says that, I'm like, no, where's the Southern? He needs like a corncob pipe and a straw hat to say that.
Yeah. Infobomb is with us tonight. He's dropping all kinds of comments already. But he would agree that he asked, he wonders if the mixed critical reaction was because, well, Fox seemed too young for it, or because the screenplay seemed to be something that was. And yeah, he is right. The authors had the track record of Legal Eagles and Top Gun, but it makes them more or less milling in the service of the big industry. Yeah, I think Michael J. Fox partly got cast for this because he was the it guy,
Hmm.
in '87. Maybe not so much that he was fitting for it. Maybe they thought, well, we could get away with it, okay, because they seen his, you know, uh, Alex P. Keaton character. So they like, oh, so he can pull off the business kind of approach, but we want him to be more middle than right leading
Yeah.
as Alex P. Keaton. But I mean, the spirit is still there. When I say, that he was, I think the spirit of that character is here, although it's like the good spirit,
Yeah.
like, yeah, the more fair or spirit of this. Also, Info Bob mentioned seemed to be something overall that a cackling vibe as Zemeckis and Gale did in the Back to the Future. He goes, maybe the only film Cindy Crawford was in that made any money. Yeah, because she was in the beginning, because Michael Keaton's character, Mr. Brantley, shows up in New York. The hick, he says he's got a hotel, a apartment lined up, worst apartment ever, but he's still staying optimistic, right? But while he shows up, there's all these models that end up just are walking around that supposedly he's seen, and one of them is Cindy Crawford, briefly.
Did that apartment that was his same apartment that he had throughout the movie, right? Because like when
Yes,
we
yes,
first
it
see it,
was.
it's the classic, n- you know, first time in New York apartment. There's basically about as much space as we have in these windows of our live stream, and it's like packed with garbage and the pull down bed and all that. But when we see his apartment later, like when the boss's wife comes to visit, it's like this big place.
It is.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
not sprawling, but it's much bigger than we first saw. I'm like, what's going on here?
Well, it's bigger because he got rid of all the junk that was in the apartment. It looked like junk, either that or it was his stuff all
It
boxed up in the apartment. It
it
was hard
looked
to
like he
tell.
knocked it looked like he got rid of the junk and knocked down some walls. Maybe the neighbors they knocked down the walls because
They they
that
might have, yeah.
that scene where he is conducting their sex scene through the wall,
Uh-huh.
that was worth that's worth the price of admission alone for this movie. I'd never seen that bit before,
Hilarious.
and it was wonderful.
That's one of my favorite bits because, yeah, at this point, Brantley is posing as Whitfield, this new guy, and so he's working on stuff, but he's trying to concentrate. But his neighbors start getting into the act of things, like, and you get the feeling this is his routine because he conducts them, and it shows you the comedy that is Michael J. Fox and how he's able to sell this and the conducting it was great. It's hilarious. It is. It's one of my favorite sequences in this film altogether. It's just that bit. It's like I could see a young guy in his apartment dealing with that, and that's how he's dealing with it. It's
And he finishes it off by cracking a big foamy beer that just
with
erupts
one
everywhere.
hand,
Yeah.
with the one
In one
hand too.
hand. Oh,
Yeah,
so good.
it has me. That scene has me laughing every single time. I forgot about the beer. It'd been a while, so I forgot about the beer. I knew the conducting, and then he did the beer thing, and that floored me. I was like,
How many times have you seen this?
many, many
Really?
times.
This is
Yeah,
my first time.
I watched it when I was younger. I watched it quite a bit, mostly because it was one of those where it was always on cable or whatnot. But I was a big Michael J. Fox fan because of Back to the Future.
Mm.
So, and I liked him in this role, and I found it quite funny and absurd because, I mean, on one hand, you could see it that a company is so big that Brantley gets away with what he does, but at the same time, being so connected to the boss, how he manages to try to get out of things and avoid being seen by the head guy who crosses paths with him more often than not. That part is just like, yeah, okay. This is total fantasy here.
It is. I think they come just up to that line because you get the feeling that Uncle Howard is so disconnected from everything and he's got so many subordinates and sub managers and sub managers. Like when he pops into that, meeting to
Mhm.
sit in and find out what they're talking about, the guy running the meeting is like, "Oh, oh my God, you're here."
Yeah.
And of course, that's the meeting that Brantley's sitting at the other end of the table. He fakes a nosebleed to run out of there because I was genuinely sitting there thinking, how is he going to be able to get through an entire meeting just with his back turned toward the
Right.
boss? And I've got some issues with this movie, but there are
Yeah.
definitely things that really work. And that I love watching scenes where I don't know how a character is going to get out of a particular situation and they surprise me. And that definitely did.
Much like that, and it was the scene that was in the trailer, but still him how because Brantley still has his mailroom job as that was given to him by his uncle, while he's also posing as this top executive Whitfield, but he's got to change clothes every so often. So he keeps hopping into the elevator and locking it. And everybody thinks it gets stuck. And one time it gets unstuck. They unlock it, but he's still undressed. So it opens and he like flexes his muscles with just his tie on and throws his clothes to his secretary. He goes, "Here, could you dry clean those, please?" And he just pulls it. And I'm like, oh,
Well, that and there's some great Clark Kent moments in here where he's trying to do the quick
mhm.
change using the elevator instead of the phone booth. But one thing I don't know if he did this multiple times or just the once that I caught it, but when he's in the mailroom, he's got like a headband on,
Yeah,
and I'm like, that's kind of odd. But when he gets in the elevator, he takes it
it's
off, and that's his necktie.
necktie.
Like, that's perfect. So good.
It does. It works well. It works well. And Infobob says maybe Fox is still stuck in sitcom mode, while Slater, as she began in film, certainly takes better command of the screen than Fox does at times, though he does make up for an okay fish out of water. And at times, Fox seems stuck in sitcom mode. He was, but you know, I don't know if he was personally stuck in sitcom mode or because that's the jobs he was getting. So you go with what works coming your way. I mean, because you're still an actor, you know. And yeah, you're right. Infobomb, he mentioned earlier, Light of Day, which was opposite of Secret of My Success. As
That was the
far
one
as,
with Joan Jett, right?
yeah.
Yeah. Or yeah. Was that the same year?
I'm not sure if that was or not. I'd have to look quick. Let me look.
Hmm.
Um,
But I know this was the same year as Wall Street, funnily enough.
yeah, yeah. It's funny that it's the same year that Wall Street came. Well, again, and we've talked about it before, how Hollywood likes to copy itself for trends. You know, when these projects get announced, word travels to other studios. Hey, this studio is working on such and such, and they're like, oh, do we have something that's similar to that we can bring out? Yeah, you know, and like we were saying, all around this time period, those stock and business, you know, make fun of yuppie type of stories were big in Hollywood. So everybody was kind of playing in that trend, trying to hop on that bandwagon, so to speak. And yeah, you're right. It was the same year as Wall Street. So, you know, they heard about Wall Street. And so, like, hey, let's make a comedy that involves stock, not stock brokerage, but stock, you know. Yeah, yeah, that's it. And this is brought to us by the same director, though, who directed a film that we that talked about a while back, Footloose.
Really?
This is the same director that brought us Footloose, Herbert Ross. He also directed, besides this, he would go on after Footloose. Yeah, this is only his second film after Footloose because he did Protocol in between.
Oh, with
Uh,
Goldie Hawn,
with
right?
Goldie Hawn, yeah. And so he
Wow.
did Footloose, Protocol, Secret of My Success. Then he did a film called Dancers with what's his name? DeBergerac, you know, yeah, Mikhail Baryshnikov, who
Yeah.
was, you know, acting for a hot minute. But then he'd go on to direct Steel Magnolias, My Blue Heaven, True Colors, and Undercover Blues. And his last film before he passed was Boys on the Side that he directed. So that's the director of Secret of My Success.
Wow.
Yeah, isn't that mind-boggling?
That's quite an eclectic career.
It
Um,
is. It is quite a bit. And so
yeah, I think he's got a talent for it. I mean, it's weird because like if you watch this movie, you could see Michael J. Fox was probably, he was a hot actor at the time, but there's a lot of Marty McFly in this? Like, how many different scenes are
Yeah.
there of him like stumbling to get in or out of his pants? And I just kept thinking of the kind of the Calvin Klein scene from Back to the Future where he falls over, or the bit from Back to the Future where he's trying to get away from Biff and his gang. They kind of recreate
Yeah.
that here where he's running from the head of the mailroom and falling downstairs and all that craziness. Ugh.
I love the head of the mailroom. He was hilarious.
What's your name? I'm God.
God.
God is watching.
God is watching. I love that, again, it's one of those 80s absurdist comedies. At one point, Brantley's on the payphone. Yes, folks, at a time, there used to be phones out in public that you could put a quarter in and you would pick up the receiver and dial and you could make phone calls. Anyway, Brantley is playing off like he's got a great big apartment and things are going well. He doesn't tell his mom. He doesn't want to disappoint her that the place where he was going to get the job, folded. And he's having this conversation while a crime is going on because he lives in a rather high crime, not so great neighborhood to where there's guns shooting going off and nearly flying by him. And I think the cops actually shoot a perp at the climax of that little scene.
This is
And
like the first, 10 minutes or so of the
yeah,
movie, and
yeah,
I was still trying to get my sea legs with this. I'm like, what kind of a film is this? Because they start off with like the mom and dad talking about their son going off to the big city. Then you
breaking
get
the
the
fourth
goofy,
wall. Yeah.
right? Then you get the goofy montage that has like Cindy Crawford stuff, and then you've got this shootout because it's shot, as you mentioned, as a comedic kind of trope. But if you watch what's going on with the scenes of, it's like a bodega gets a stick up, and then the cops show up and there's like a shootout, but it's like filmed as a real scene. I'm like, what am I watching, Serpico here or something? And then there's comedy, like these people are getting really hurt and there's cops getting shot out and glass exploding everywhere. I was more invested in, like, are those people going to be okay, than I was that wacky phone call he was having with mom.
Yes, the wacky phone call. Well, what's great even before that is that he's on the phone talking to his mom saying, "Hey, everything is great." And you watch these two perpetrators walk into the convenience store. There's one guy outside with a boombox who, if you want a stereotypical guy with a boombox from the 80s, that was this guy, complete with the shades and the multicolored rainbow like jacket. And he's listening to the boombox, and these guys go to the convenience store. And I love it. He takes a peek in and he just goes, "Oh," and he takes his boombox and he just kind of walks away. He's like, "Da, da, 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 da." And you're right. It's a weird tone to set. I mean, this film definitely just keeps banging. I mean, as far as like scenes and stuff go, it just keeps moving. That's one thing that's kind of impressive with this film. It just, even with the slower parts, this thing really blows through the story and
It
story
does.
parts.
It does, and it also, it's got this, I don't know what it is. I don't know if the director thought he was being sexy or what, but like the bit where Michael J. Fox encounters Helen Slater at the water fountain. It's the close up of her mouth, like slowly drinking the water.
And it's some
That's
fantasy scene, yeah.
that's weird enough. Then it cuts to her like slowly walking like down this long corridor or hall, like a big hallway or
Yes,
something, in a
yeah.
pink dress. Not the actress looks really uncomfortable. Like, what did I sign up for here? What does this have to do with the story? I'm supposed to be this high-powered executive. You got me in a pink dress. I hate this. But the weird part is like that scene comes directly after Uncle Howard says, I've got you an appointment down in the mailroom. Get down there. Like, you cut to him at the water fountain. I'm still thinking he's got to get down to that mailroom interview to talk to his boss. I don't know when this scene is supposed to take place because he's already got the job in the next scene. But the whole time I'm sitting there thinking, because he's like daydreaming about this, it seems like for an hour he's just standing there by this fucking water fountain.
Well, yeah, he's so daydreamy that there's nobody in the lobby. He comes down, the lobby's packed. He watches her drink, all creeper like, and he's just like, "He's drinking water," and and then that fantasy scene. You missed the part though where not only is she in this long kind of pink go to fancy dinner dress, but it's in front of the biggest Art Deco 80s art mural behind
Okay.
her that
Yeah.
matches the colors that her dress goes with the colors of the painting behind. And I'm like, yeah, they just found this painting to go, oh, I need to shoot this. I need a scene with this in it. How are we going to do this?
Oh, but yeah, so I'm wait the scene after that, I was expecting, like, he comes to it, he's like, "Oh, shit, I gotta
Right.
get to the mailroom," but no, it's just like he suddenly has the job because he's showing up with his papers like, or no, I think he was supposed to go down to the guy in personnel who was gonna
Right.
give
He
him his
was going to go to
assignment.
the right.
Then he shows up in the mailroom like, "Hey, I've got my papers," and everything. Like, when did all this happen?
Well, I think we cut out the part. I think he does go to the guy in the personnel, and that's why he's leaving the building, and that's when he happens across her, across Christy, and watches her drink water from a bubbler, which wouldn't happen nowadays because I think bubblers have been taken out of most buildings because of COVID. But anyway, uh, yeah, it's a weird but 80s scene, just like the other scene that happens soon after while he's in the mail room when his uncle Howard's wife needs a driver for her limo to drive her home. And you get the probably one of the most used songs in the 80s since it came out. Oh
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
We
Bow,
get
bow. Chick, chick, chicka.
we get, like, the full version of that song twice in this
I
movie.
know, right?
It's not the
We
win you think it is, guys, making this
no.
movie.
We get the first time we get it because his auntie Vera, who is played wonderfully by Margaret Whitten. I loved how she just is
She's great.
she's just having fun in this role. Everybody's having fun, but she's definitely having fun in this role. As yeah, Vera, and so he's driving her, and so he puts on the Midwest charm and throws a comment, her way of how how Howard, her husband, he doesn't know it's Howard at this moment. How her husband, he'd be fortunate to wake up next to a woman who looked as good as she did, which immediately like cue the oh yeah. And she starts putting on her lipstick and acting a bit seductive. She won't let the little divider between the limo go down. And she starts smoking and blowing. It's hilarious. She starts blowing smoke like all seductively. But while she's doing that, he's coughing as smoke's blowing out the driver window. But you get the full length of the "Oh Yeah" song. And then you get
And the least subtle, lipstick application I've ever seen, because it's not like she's just putting on lipstick. She's, like, almost blowing that lipstick, I swear.
yes, she is.
And
She
it's not
is.
like bright red lipstick, it's like that weird, certain colored flesh lipstick. I'm like, "What's going on here, guys?"
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Oh.
definitely there's the innuendo, and then she talks him into going into the pool. And yeah, and then she seduces him. Uh
And, of course, they play the Jaws music, and Michael J.
yes.
Fox, who had to have been embarrassed to say it, "Just when you thought it was safe to go
Just have
back in
to
the
go in the
water."
water. Because she's putting the moves on him, and yeah, he drops that line, and I'm just like, wow, I forgot he says that. I really
Oh, 1987, also the year that Jaws 4: The Revenge came out.
Whew. Hey, at least it got Michael Caine a house for his mother. So there you go. That I think that's that's what he said in an interview. He never watched it, but he did visit the house that he bought for his mom because of the paycheck from
Oh.
Jaws 4. Which more power to you. You're not missing anything, Mr. Kane. Uh, so yeah, then it's revealed that Uncle Howard is her husband, and therefore that makes her Auntie Vera. And then there's this wonderful line that I know it's wrong, but it's hilarious to where he goes, "Oh my god!" He's like, I'm ashamed. Was it? I've disgraced. Was it? Yeah,
He said,
something
"I've
like
disgraced my family," and she
family.
said, "Like hell you
Hell, you
did."
did. And it's the way she delivers it. Like I said, Margaret Whitten is just all in on this character. And just when you think that's like her one note, we get to this point to because the big thing and why it's part of stocking up month is that good old Howard Prescott, his company's being hostilely taken over from stock. A competitor has bought up 5% of their stock, and which usually means it's going to lead to a hostile takeover. So Howard is juggling that and the fact that he's chasing Christy Wills as well, who is slowly falling for Whitfield, who is Brantley, who is the side piece for Auntie Vera. So it's just really interesting triangle.
Yeah, the it's not even a
Or not a
triangle,
triangle,
it's a full-blown
octagon. Yeah,
personnel chart, like, with
yeah.
the
It's an org chart with
forgot the gasm.
you forget the yes, yeah. But it's just interesting with these characters, you have all of this. You have this story, the subplot of the company being taken over, which actually comes back around near the end. Um, and I don't know, I find a lot of charm in this movie. I don't know why, but I do.
It's frustrating, like, I appreciate a lot of it, but there's some of that, like you said, this is the most 80s movie I think we've ever talked about or
Mhm.
something. It really is, like, down to, like, the synth, kinda like the tin, 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 like, the kind of the love themes that are sprinkled throughout. I'm like, "Oh, just stop." But the whole sequence at the end where they all go out to the country house and they have this giant party and, both Brantley and Whitfield are supposed to be there and they're the same person. They do this bit where it's nighttime and everyone's trying to sneak into bed with each other. It just goes on. It feels like it goes on for 20 minutes. I'm like, I know what you're doing. None of this is funny. None of it works. The resolution to that, where all the lights come on and they got the four people standing in the bedroom, like, yelling at each other, that was great. But the stuff leading up to it is like,
Well,
they're trying a little bit too hard, I think, to recapture something that had died like 40 years earlier.
well, yeah, and they had to milk their licensing for "Oh Yeah" because that's where they play "Oh Yeah" again. Uh, but yeah, no, the resolution was interesting because with Christie uh not knowing that Brantley Whitfield is Brantley and Howard not knowing Brantley is Whitfield, Howard thinks that Whitfield is a spy for Davenport, the guy who wants to take over the company. So he asks Christie to get close. She steals these notes because he's a brilliant guy. It's like, oh my god, this is brilliant stuff. uh you know and when the lights came on, that's the big like turning point in this plot because it's revealed of the double life that Brantley's been living. He revealed that the girl that he's fallen in love with, that she, the hard-nosed executive, is actually falling for. Oh, you took my notes. Everything is kind of revealed out in the open at this point, and that's where you get that wonderful 80s, oh man, we've lost. And they, no, we haven't. and
We
you
got to rally the rest of the misfits to
and
triumph over the jocks. Yeah.
and you cut from we haven't lost yet until this big scene. And then yeah, I mean it's the 80s formula is so much here in Secret of, but it's I like one of my favorite parts of this actually, and the parts which is funny because out of this kind of goofy comedy, absurdist stuff, the situation where I was going with the Vera character who has more than just being uh Auntie Vera going after young Brantley is there's during the sequence at the farmhouse when everybody comes out for the weekend, she starts introducing him to these influential people. And I actually like this montage. I don't know why, but I like how this montage was done quite a bit because it added something to the Vera character. It showed him impressing people. And you don't really hear any of the dialogue. You've got the music going on, the 80s theme music, which I didn't even realize the words went along with the actions until I had the subtitles on. And I'm like, "Oh, this is actually written for the okay." I thought it was just some cheesy 80s song, when I used to watch it.
Well, I like that, she's just introducing this guy to all these other like very well connected Manhattan and beyond businessmen, you get the feeling it's because she believes in him, not just because they're sleeping together.
Right.
You also don't get the sense that she knows these people because she's also slept with them. That would have been in a lesser movie, that would have been something like, "Oh, let me introduce you to Jack. We
Mhm.
go way
Yeah.
back," like the Gordon Gekko thing where it turns out he was
Yeah.
sleeping with, Daryl Hannah the whole time. But also I love that Howard is the president of the company, but it's her family's company. Like he
Yeah.
married into that. She's the
Uh-huh.
quote unquote kept woman, but she has an interest at the end of coming back and salvaging this company that her husband has kind of run into the ground. It's there for as much as I'd love to see either a remake or an edit of this film. When I say remake, I mean do it in the 1980s style. Like, don't try
Right.
and modernize it. Just remake it, but take out the kind of the crap. Uh, it's a really good movie. I say that with a shrugging recommendation, kind of an embarrassed one, because there's enough stuff here that works. That boardroom scene at the end, I'm convinced that no one told Fred Gwynn what movie he was in because
He looked
he
lost. He looked so lost.
he looked lost, he looked pissed beyond like what his character was doing. He's like, "Wait, why is Michael J. Fox in this movie?" Not like, "Who is this guy coming into the boardroom?" He's like, "I thought this was gonna be I thought I was here to film Wall Street."
I waltzed onto the wrong set. Yeah,
Wait, you're not Oliver Stone?
you're not Oliver Stone. This doesn't look like that. Sure as heck. What? Where am I? Just sit down, Fred. You don't have to say much. Uh,
'Cause I
it,
I love him in My Cousin Vinny, and that's even like
yeah,
he's a serious he's a stern
yeah.
character, but he's also kind of funny. In this movie, he's not even really funny. There's not like this
No.
softening thing of like, "Oh, well, I guess I got you guys pulled one over on me. Ha ha ha. Congratulations. You're gonna do great in this business, son." He's like, "No, get these people out of here. What's going on?"
Yeah, well, the boardroom scene, I love again. I love how this film came together because you think Brantley, and this was the moment I was talking about earlier, is you think Brantley is down and out because his secret's revealed, though the work he's did was exciting. The secretary actually loved him. He had really good ideas people actually liked. Um, and at the end, he pulls the rug out from under his Uncle Howard, thanks to the people that Vera introduced him to. And you're right. That's where we get the first time where we get oh, this is her company. Okay. And you realize Howard has even less power than and that's why he's probably been overcompensating. And it explains a lot of his actions over the whole course of the film of overcompensating for some things, knowing this isn't actually his company. And then they talk about how they pooled the money together from the mailroom, the secretary. This was it. It's the mailroom, the secretary pool, and the female executives of the company pooled their money together. They got the three financiers and bought 51.1% of the stock just so that they could stick it to Howard with Vera's help. I loved that. I loved how that all came together.
It's nice because I think it brings full circle stuff that was towards the beginning of the movie, like on
Right.
Brantley's first day when I can't remember the name of the guy. Was it Fred? The
Mhm.
dude, the other guy in the mailroom who's like kind of showing him
Right.
around.
Yeah.
He's like, don't mingle with the suits. You don't want to become a suit. They're not
Right.
real people. But when he's showing him around, Brantley is like passing by these executives, these suits. And he's like saying, "Good morning. Hey, how you doing? Nice to meet you." And Fred is like, "Don't interact with them." He's like, "What? I can't just like say hi to people?" He's
Yeah.
bringing those kind of like Midwestern Kansas, like just be good to people. That's how probably a spit in the handshake, as a contract, kind of like a homespun values to the
Yeah.
big city. And there's another scene soon after that kind of plants the seed of how he's going to get into this executive position. He goes into an office and he sees that a guy has just been fired, and the guy's packing up his belongings and he's crying. Now,
Mhm.
this is a screwball comedy, but that's a real moment. It's not played for a laugh. You're like, because he's an older guy, it looks like he's probably been there for 30 years. What's he going to tell his family? It's all in his face. In that 15 seconds, we see him putting stuff into the box. I'm like, wow. So at the very end, when they take over the company and Vera's put in charge, taking the place of her husband as the head of the company, you're like, yeah, I feel like good people really won out today.
You do feel like the good people won out. And you know, and that's the one thing that pardon my get off the lawn moment that many comedies I think nowadays kind of miss is that this isn't the only 80s comedy that managed to mix some real moments in with the screwball kind of zany comedy. You'd get like these real human moments, and then you'd go back to the zaniness, but you'd get just these beats here and there that would bring you kind of back to like reality, like ground you back before you then go on this crazy mailroom chase, which was hilarious when Brantley's running away from his mailroom boss so that he doesn't see him. And he actually makes one full circle, and Fred goes, "Oh, lap two, you've still got a comfortable lead."
Yeah, I mean, even that's fun because you think that Fred might be like an antagonist or something, or feel betrayed because he was lied to by Brantley, but he kind of feels you get the sense that he's like, I don't care. This kid's gonna do what he wants. I don't want any part of that until at the very end when he becomes, Vera's plaything, which is
He
very
becomes
interesting.
he becomes fierce, but which is another thing that kind of twists where you're just like, wait, because you're wondering how this is going to play out because Vera, it, and it's like it makes sense. Vera's like, okay, he's actually in love with Christy. She's fine with that, but yeah, she meets up with mailroom Fred, and she's like, how have I known, not known you've lived here, worked here this long, and it was great to see Fred uh get basically move up in his position, and him and Vera actually hit it off, and he actually is kind of, moved up out of the mailroom, so to speak.
I wonder about that. Did he quit his job because now he doesn't need to work anymore? Or I like to think that there's
I
a scene where he's still working in the mailroom, but he just doesn't. He gives even less of a shit because he's like,
I I was gonna say, I think that's the thing is part of me is sitting there wondering, wait, did Fred still stay in the mailroom? Because he seemed to enjoy his job, actually. He
right.
did he just took his job as it came. He knew the rules and he played it. He went through his motions, and it almost like Fred. So I could almost see Fred, even though he was with Vera, probably still working in the mailroom. I still could.
Well, it's weird because I mean you've got God, the supervisor. He ends up being the limo driver at the very end,
Yeah,
which is strange because I expected him to be like, "Where to, sir?" But he
yeah.
seemed like really happy.
Well, I think he was
Maybe because
happy
his
that
boss wasn't a jerk. I don't know.
I think he was happy because he wasn't running the mailroom. He wasn't happy I think because he had to juggle the mailroom and he seemed very stressed all the time. So
Mhm.
now doing as a driver for Vera, hell, that was like a cush job for him. He's probably got a place at her house as well, like a butler type duties to where that's where he stay. I mean, compared to working in the mailroom, he's moved up as well, probably. You know,
I wanna see another 20 minutes of this movie to find out, like, where everyone landed because I love, like, what happened to this guy? What happened to this person? I wanna know.
Yeah, you don't even get like the telltale normal like freeze frame and text like so and so ended up here and freeze frame text so and so ended up here. You don't really get that. In fact, the credits, it's like you get this wonderful scene where everybody's happy and paired up together. They're going to the opera and you've got the music, the secret of my success, and I'm
Is I'm
living,
living.
you know, and all of a sudden you get the scene where Christy moves in to kiss Brantley on the steps of the opera, and suddenly the credits just start. It's just like, oh yeah, we forgot we got to start rolling the credits, and you're like, wait, what? Wait, that's it? We
There are way too many, like, extended makeout scenes in this movie. I don't know what's
no,
going on there.
and in all honesty, I love Michael J. Fox, always have, always will. But let me tell you, his his kissing scenes were not exactly the best kissing scenes. Mad props to Helen Slater selling it the best she could because he needed. You could tell he was a bit young in that respect. We're gonna pull over here just for a moment. And Infobob says seems like Uncle and Aunt are sort of predatory in regard to Brantley. Um, I don't think they were predatory. I think they wanted him to stay. They thought he was just chasing a dream and didn't believe. I wouldn't say that they were predatory. I think they just wanted him to. They didn't think he would make it at all. You know, at least the uncle for sure. The aunt was like, "Oh yeah, she supported him, whatever, because that's kind of her boy." And the dad's like, "Yeah, you'll be coming back. You'll be coming back." Yeah. But I don't think they were predatory in that they wanted him to go out there get success and then, oh hey, where's our money type of way. If I think that's what leaning, they just didn't quite believe him chasing the dream from Midwest to the big New York City.
Well, I mean, yeah, Vera definitely used Brantley for sex,
Yeah.
but she definitely you get the feeling that he was giving her more the attention, the emotional attention and respect that she wasn't getting from her husband. And then as far as Uncle Howard goes, I don't think he didn't really know about Brantley or Whitfield. He's constantly
No.
chasing them both.
Yeah.
Because he thinks that Whitfield, this person he's never seen before, but he keeps hearing from his staff is like this new genius that no one knows who hired him, is a spy from the company that's trying to take them over. So he's very interested in getting all the dirt on him. So yeah, all of this comes out in the one big scene towards the end of the movie, which I think was pretty great. There's no like, oh, I've got you now. It's like, no, everyone just like the lights go on, and that's when the truth is revealed.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was thinking parents, not the uncle and aunt. My apologies on that. So that's where my confusion was. Sorry.
Well, no, well, that's honestly, you brought up the parents. That is the one payoff that this movie fails to do, because they mention early on when Brantley I think he's having a flashback. He's talking about his parents gave him the return ticket. He's like, I'm never using this. When I come back to Kansas, it's going to be on a private jet.
Yeah.
And then later on in the movie, I think he's talking to
Christy.
Christy, and he's like, yeah, I promised myself that next time I go back to Kansas, it's going to be on a private jet. What do you do, filmmakers? The rule of three. At the end of the movie, you show them flying back to Kansas, maybe even landing, well, not on the wheat field because the dad would probably be you're killing the crops.
Landing at the strip and having
the little Kansas airport.
Yeah.
They don't do that. I was like, big missed opportunity.
Well, maybe they ran out of money because, like I said, the credits kind of abruptly start while they're getting this kissing scene on at the opera.
This isn't a canon film, Mark.
Well, that was the last dollar. Roll credits. We're good. But what about the plane scene? Nope, we're done. We're done. That's our budget. Hurry up.
Just show them kissing again. It'll be fine.
Just have them kissing again. They're kissing too long. Start turning off the lights. They'll get the hint. I
did love that one bit. It almost seemed like an improv or an outtake that they just left in. I think it was in one of the end elevator makeout scenes when you see Michael J. Fox actually like get up on his tiptoes, so he's just about height with her, and he kind of gives that little raised eyebrow and smirk. I'm like, yeah, we all know you're the size of like a figurine.
Yeah, she was a bit taller than him. Of course, as much as he kind of was infatuated with Bubbler, Christy at the beginning, didn't stop him from flirting with the other ladies in the office.
Yeah, it is the 80s. But yeah, I was definitely getting this like pseudo American Psycho vibe, like every woman in like a business suit is like, yeah, I can just go plop down to your desk and like strike up a conversation. Sure, why not? That's appropriate. And at the end, the big boardroom meeting or whatever, when everybody wins, Like,
Yeah.
they just start making out again at the table in front of everybody. Is like, oh, we got one last piece of business to take care of. I'm like, no, no.
No, 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 you
And
don't.
I'm sorry, Christy goes from being like way too buttoned up to being way too casual. There's no way that she's gonna be like, no, don't kiss me in front of my colleagues. What the hell
Yeah.
is wrong with you?
Yeah, it was interesting with her character. I mean, yeah, it's funny because even her character, even though she's supposed to be the financial whiz that's supposed to be a little cold, um, she still is rather cordial to Brantley, who pops into her office to hide from Howard, and he starts kind of, trying to drop some lines. And she's way too polite. I've liked this for the way her character was. She seemed way. I know she probably was a little, taken by his charm because it's Michael J. Fox. He gives a little smile and a little eyebrow thing, and like, oh, but she seemed a bit too cordial to it.
Well, she was cordial in the sense that she didn't yell at him and say, "Get the hell out of my
True.
office."
Yeah.
She was, kind of getting these little digs in at him, I think, to
Yeah.
try and get him to leave on his own, which he eventually did. One of the things I appreciate about this is that, it's commented on that she's one of the very few female executives in the building,
Right.
but you don't have the aside from Howard, they've got an actual relationship going on, but she has the respect of her male colleagues.
Mhm.
We You get the sense that she's had to put up with a lot of crap to get into the position that she's in, but it's not like every other boardroom scene she's getting talked down to or quote unquote mansplained or wolf whistled or any of that. She's seen as a peer and she's giving as good as she gets.
Yeah.
But when I say that, I don't mean that she's having to like fight with people. They're having like legitimate business conversations, and
Mhm.
her sex is not at all part of that. It's a level playing field. I think I wasn't expecting that in a 1987 comedy because you usually see a lot of the opposite.
Well, and that's the other thing too. That's the attraction between them is the attraction between them is, for lack of a better term, for 87, for 1987 at least level, a bit more intellectual than physical, because while she kind of finds him adorable, she figures he's just another, exec. And then he starts challenging her. It's not like, oh, she has a great idea or whatnot just to get it good with her. He's like, yeah, no, she's actually wrong. We need to not cut factories, but actually expand. And they actually butt heads on it and actually debate a bit over their philosophies of how they think the company should succeed. But they're exchanging ideas, and it's the exchange of ideas that attracts them to each other more so than the physical.
Right, but there's never a scene where the guy who's running the meeting says, "Look, honey, I
Right.
don't think this is going to work out."
Yeah,
None of
no,
that.
everybody takes she has command of the room. She really does. And the folks there, and that's what's interesting too. Yeah, you're absolutely right for this type of film. Yeah, it's interesting. So that, yeah, there's a lot of as much as there are some bits of problematic humor and such, it's just an interesting, cute comedy. It's got this charm that is fun. It never gets too heavy. You never have like suddenly some really major dramatic, like someone dies or something, or someone, has a tragic accident like you might have. This film stays pretty light. And maybe we don't get as many as we used to light films, and maybe that's the appeal of it. But that's why I've always kind of enjoyed this, is because it's just kind of a light, this is a fun film.
It really is. One thing I do want to address,
Yeah,
Infobomb pulls up that if you could put up that last comment. I
sure.
appreciate the use of French, although it should be a Q instead of a G. Pseudo American Psycho vibe, qu'est-ce que c'est? I will explain what that is. I
Please
was
do.
referencing not so much that there's anybody murdering people, although I just put it together. Both films have use walking on sunshine.
They do. They do.
You know, kind of strolling through the office. But no, it's more of the idea of women in, you know, New York in the 1980s, which was when American Psycho was set. And this one, obviously, more of the object. You know, if they're working in an office, they're not necessarily. Christie is an exception because
Right.
you've either got the rather homely kind of like comic relief secretary who's not sexy, or you've got that one scene where there's a line of, I guess, like secretaries or dictates, whatever, sitting in a row, and you've got the kind of the nice hot leggy blonde at the end. Brantley walks right by them towards the camera, but then he goes back and he
Back.
sits on the
It's
desk,
just
kind of
yeah.
like leans in. That's what I'm talking about. You can call it American Psycho, you can call it Mad Men, just that kind of idea of like, we've got the eye candy in the office. Yes, they're dressed in suits, but look at those legs.
Yeah. Yeah. So you still got some of those elements in here. But yeah, I find a lot of charm in this. And Infobob says he was joking around.
No,
He
but it's
needed
a good
to,
point
but
because
it's a good point.
when you
Yeah.
brought that up, I'm glad you brought that up, even if you were just kidding, because I realized that I kind of breezed right past that, and people might, what the hell is he talking about? Something that was in my head, not necessarily coming out of my mouth. So thank you.
Okay. Wow. How about some trivia tidbits here from the Ibidem? Apparently, the film was inspired by early Hollywood experiences by Steven Spielberg, who snuck into Universal lot at a young age, began using empty office as his own production office. So there's a connection there to Spielberg. The burn on the bottom of Brantley's foot, even though he is supposedly a non-smoker, is because Michael J. Fox was a heavy smoker, and so the burn on the bottom of his shoe was from his cigarettes when he would put them out with his shoe, the cigarette butts.
Wow.
That's why when he puts them up on the desk. But check this out. In the original script, it was about a young man working for his uncle and falling in love with his uncle's mistress. His uncle's mistress was supposed to be a prostitute, and they changed the character Christy Willis from a prostitute to a mistress and added the complication with Aunt Vera. So it was supposed to be a lot different, and I'm glad they made the change. I'm really glad they made the change.
Well, no, it sounds almost like someone took that concept and turned it into the movie that came out in '88 with Melanie Griffith, Working Girl.
Right? Yeah.
Very,
It
you know, kind of similar ideas there.
it is. It is very similar ideas. Christy McNichol was supposed to be actually in the part of Christy Willis, but she was fired 2 weeks before filming because of fears she might be difficult to work with due to her bipolar disorder. Yeah.
Wow.
Christy McNichol was supposed to actually play that role. And it's interesting. Here we are. The Night Ranger performed the title song. They didn't expecting the song to not only be used in the film but also the trailer. However, the trailer was released instead of the title song by Night Ranger, "Walking on Sunshine" by Katrina and the Waves was used. However, on DVD, two versions of the trailer are shown, one with "Walking on Sunshine" and one with the instrumental song from Night Ranger. So there's some trivia tidbits for you on that. It's got unused music by John Williams. Really interesting history
What?
with this film. Yeah, yeah, it's wild. I love looking up some of the details that they have for some of these films back then. You know, these short, like just one-off projects. Apparently, they were going to make a sequel, but never happened. Kind of glad they didn't.
A sequel?
Yeah.
I don't even know what it's kind of like we're talking about like Trading Places. What would a sequel to that look like? I have no idea.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure either what a sequel to this would have been like, because yeah, where do you go from here, really?
Oh shit, you get a
Um,
crossover where the companies run by Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd go to war with the company run by Aunt Vera and Ellen Slater and Michael
yeah,
J. Fox.
Davenport ends up not buying the company because of what Brantley and company do, so they keep the company. But Gecko comes in for a hostile takeover, but they need help to defend themselves from Gecko. So they enlist the help of the brokers.
Oh, the Dukes. Yeah, there you go.
We've all tied it together now.
It's the stocking up cinematic universe. You saw it here first, folks.
So there you have it, folks. Would you recommend it, Ian?
Oh yeah. It's a hard. You got to get through the first like 20 minutes. Just to kind of get onto the vibe, the wavelength of this film, because it is. I think most of the problems in this film honestly come down to the musical choices and the instrumentals,
which they did make a musical out of this.
Really?
Yeah, which I didn't think made sense at first when I looked it up. I'm like, wait, they made a Secret of My Success musical? Until I listened to the Night Ranger music with the subtitles and had the words, and then I'm like, this is pretty much a musical.
Yeah. It does tell a story, all right, but wow, I'm curious about that now. But yeah, I would totally recommend people watch this. Michael J. Fox grows on me so that by the end, I'm like, yeah, this is a decent Michael J. Fox movie. But yeah, for that first 20 minutes, it's the music and also getting used to him playing like a Kansas, kid in the big city. Is like, I don't know, I can't. After seeing him as all these other parts that he's done, because he had at least a 5-6 year career in the mainstream up to this. This is a part for a new actor, not someone that you've seen in other different roles where it's like, oh, I'm just the shy kid with big ideas and dreams. Like, no, you can't play that part anymore.
Yeah, it's hard to say who would play this role. Estevez? Emilio, maybe?
He's a bit too intense and a bit too jockey.
What about Charlie?
No, because he was in Wall Street, and I don't.
Oh yeah.
I don't think...
Who would you cast? Who would you think? Let's try to think of the '80s pool of actors. It's hard to think of that, but who would maybe be? You could pull into this. It's hard to say.
That is a really tough one.
That would be a tough one. So, folks out there, hey, who would you cast instead of Michael J. Fox in Secret of My Success if you had a chance?
Anthony Michael Hall. That's a decent one.
There you go. Cusack?
No.
Not. See, Robert Bob was thinking same thing I have. John Cusack, maybe.
Cusack has a different vibe, though. Like, if you look at what he was doing in Better Off Dead and One Crazy Summer the year before this, he doesn't have that the kind of the business thing going on, really, especially at this point in his career. Yeah, I understand it, but it's a little. Eric Stoltz, maybe.
If you add, yeah.
I was going to say, I don't know about his comedic chops necessarily. I mean, he was good in Pulp Fiction, but he did get fired off of Back to the Future. And he was in Some Kind of Wonderful, which I think is the same year as this. And he played like a mechanic who was, maybe Eric Stoltz.
Eric Stoltz, maybe. There you go. Though he'd be too old. I was going to say Steve Guttenberg, but he'd be too old. Not Steve Guttenberg. It's hard to say. McCarthy, Corey Feldman, maybe. Nah, he's too weird.
Corey Haim.
Corey Haim.
This is a Corey Haim movie.
This would be a Corey Haim film. And who would you get then? If you're going to cast Corey Haim, who would you get for Christie then?
Helen Slater.
Helen Slater still.
She does not need to be recast. She
doesn't need to be cast. She's fine. Yep. Yeah, there you go. I think you've got it. Yeah. Yeah. Or maybe, well, no, he'd be too good looking. River Phoenix was still around, John Cryer. Maybe
Cryer's interesting. He was doing a lot of because so many movies came out in 1987,
right?
hiding out. The movie is same kind of thing. He was an undercover cop in high school trying to protect his, keep these two separate identities. Yeah, that's a good one too.
Yeah. Oh,
Oh,
Jason Patrick.
same year as Superman 4: The Quest for
Yeah,
Peace.
yeah. And so there you go. He could make up for it by getting a better role. So you could have that. Yeah, I could see Cryer maybe getting away with it. Yeah. So there you have it, folks. We've recast Secret by Sin. Not saying Michael J. Fox was wrong in this. He was fine in this, but it was hard to buy the Midwestern angle with him just because he didn't bring that angle. You just look at him. At one point, he's tossing hay without a shirt, and he's talking, and you're just like, "You are not from the Midwest." I'm just like, I do not have the Midwest, hick vibes coming that he's
I'm
supposed to have.
I'm pretty sure that that pitchfork weighed more than he did.
I'm guessing. Yeah, I'm guessing. So there you have it, folks. Thank you so much for listening to us talk about Secret of My Success. Both recommend it here as a comedy. It's light, it's not too heavy, it's fun. It's got some great recognizable faces in here. The soundtrack is so 80s. Oh my god, it's so 80s. But it's fun. It's got a good spirit. So thank you so much for listening. All our listeners worldwide, we are global. So we appreciate all our listeners from everywhere to visit our little sliver of the internet. Just to let you know before we get to License to Shill here, we have our theme for next month. I figured it out. After you picked Only God Forgives, I figured out a theme. And it is One Night in Bangkok. You know the song. Well, this is going to be 4 films next month that take place in Bangkok, mainly. So yeah, we've got a great lineup. Go to specialmarkproductions.com for our lineup of One Night in Bangkok. That will be up when this episode goes live. I'm very excited. I got some interesting films on
All ones
there.
that you can find on mainstream sites. Nothing
Yes.
weird, right?
No, nothing weird. No, nothing. These are all available for regular streaming. Yes, they aren't. They aren't special films. No, that's for my OnlyFans podcast I'm starting. Anyway, so with that, as always, here's a license to shill. So Ian, go ahead, shill away.
Well,
How about
I'm
that
Ian.
lead in? Huh? There you
I'm
go.
Ian Simmons. I'm probably by proxy on some kind of list right now. Um, thanks, Mark. No, I run Kicking the Seat, which you can find at kickseat.com. I also have a YouTube channel, which you can find on YouTube at Kicking the Seat. I'm also on X at Kickseat, formerly known as Twitter, I guess.
I don't
But
know.
I don't know either. But yeah, I do like movie reviews. I used to do interviews back when people were not on strike, and live streams and all that good stuff. This Wednesday, we're going to be talking about Oppenheimer. Next week, we'll be talking about Barbie. No, we're not doing them together, unfortunately. But yeah, come hang out, follow, like, subscribe, all that business. And I'm here on Mondays talking about awesome films with Mark. And I just got to pull over for a second and say, I didn't know what you're gonna do with this whole like stock market thing, but this has been one of my favorite months with my favorite groups of movies because they're all, even though they're very similar, they're all different takes on the stock market, and they're all really worth talking about and watching.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed this selection. I thought it was, yeah. I dug deep, picked a couple that I were familiar with, and a couple I weren't, and yeah, it worked out. This has been a lot of fun for stocking up, and who knew stock market could be so interesting. Uh, but these movies definitely made it, and I hope you've enjoyed this month, folks. And I hope you enjoy One Night in Bangkok month coming up because it's going to definitely be action filled. Let me tell you, we got a crazy Nicolas Cage film. We got a wonderful martial arts film that I've seen many times. We got a film that I didn't like when I first watched it, so we'll see what happens there. And so, yeah, we got a variety of films coming. Next week we will not have a show. I because our shows are on Monday nights, I didn't quite plan it out, so we do come up short, but that's okay because I kind of need the break in there because I got to catch up on some things. So next week we will not have a live show, but starting the week after, the Monday after next, we will kick it off with One Night in Bangkok month. So I hope to see you there. Thank you, Infobomb. always, for your wonderful input, and all our other wonderful live viewers and our listeners, of course. As always, please tell your friends and have your friends tell their friends about us and our little sliver of the internet. This has been a lot of fun. And yeah, until next time, we'll just say a good night, everyone.
Good night.